I am.
I'm Jessica Rich, and Ross is doing the camera.
I'd say introduce yourself before you introduce him because you're already talking.
Oh. Right, I'm Jessica Rich. I will be interviewing Elmer Kaisner from Forest. Ross Graves is doing the camera, and Jordan's... Today is April 6, 2006, and we are at Pontiac Township High School in Pontiac, Illinois. We are interviewing Elmer Kaisner, who was born on October 23, 1916. The camera operators for today are Jordan Patterson and Ross Graves, and I am Jessica Rich, and I will be conducting the interview. This is a project for Advanced Placement U.S. History. Mr. Kaisner served in World War II and was in the 18th Airborne Army Corps. He was ranked as a staff sergeant and was stationed in England and in Europe. Okay, Mr. Kaisner, what was your... I'm sorry. Were you drafted or did you enlist in the Army?
I was drafted.
Okay. What was the date of your enlistment?
February the 12th in 1942.
Okay. Do you recall your first days in the service?
Not really, because I was married already and it was pretty upsetting, you know.
Yeah.
But really, there are other things more important than the first day that it was there, I think.
Okay. Could you tell me about your training experiences when you were born?
The what?
The training experience?
Training, actually I went into an artillery training unit, but I never did have any artillery training at all. I was in what was classed as general mechanics, and we had a woodworking shop and a tin shop and that type of thing, and of course we still had our basic training, that is marching and all this and that. But that was, it was 13 weeks of it.
Training?
Yeah.
Where were you stationed, like when you started?
When I was drafted, I went to Camp Grant, Illinois, and I was shipped out of Camp Grant to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, which was an artillery, pardon me, artillery unit. And like I say, I was 13 weeks in it.
What was your job or assignment after you finished?
My job was message center, and message center was the complete messages within the unit, and the units, the unit had different divisions under them, so all the messages were code, telephone, and of course delivery by jeep or whatever.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Yes, my board has got them all on. Don't ask me to name them one for one, but I can almost.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate on any of them in particular?
Of course, I got the Good Conduct Medal. We got to understand that. If I didn't, I probably wouldn't be here. And the main one was the European Medal with 4 bronze stars, because I went through 4 battles during the time I was over there. And of course, I was awarded the glider wings, and the glider wings, I was ended up in the gliders. I was still artillery, but in the gliders. And we had to take 4 glider rides to qualify to get the wings.
What was the food like where you were stationed?
My food was, now, we have to forget basic training, because that was haphazard, the food and stuff. But after I got into my regular unit, the cooks, the regular unit was the Mississippi National Guard, and all the people were out of one county in Mississippi. That included the cooks and all. So the cooks were cooking for their own boys. And I happened to be one of their own boys through accident. But our food was super, super good from beginning to end. That is when I was with my old unit.
How do people entertain themselves?
There wasn't too much entertainment up on the front.
Were you guys busy a lot of the time?
We were busy, and during especially the Battle of the Bulge, the weather was so extreme that it was extremely cold, so much snow, and we were busy. There was no time for entertainment. But on the way on the ship going over, we did have Bing Crosby with us, so we had entertainment on the boat by Bing, and Bing was traveling with a hillbilly band, and Bing worked with the hillbilly band on the boat. I mean, that was because Bing, I don't know who was with him really. I don't think too many that was with him. And then in Europe, I didn't really see many of the noted people, but in the States we did now and then. But as far as entertainment in Europe, it was pretty scarce.
Are there any specific funny or unusual memories that stick out in your mind?
Yes, I guess when we landed in England and our forward echelon met us at the boat, they had the word airborne across the top of our sleeve patch, and we weren't airborne. And they advised us as we got off that we were in the gliders. We didn't even know what a glider was.
Really? So then you had to go through training for
So
that
then we
too?
went into glider training, and now my training on the glider didn't amount to much because as far as the kind of equipment I had was very small. But the guys that were with the heavier equipment that had to learn to tie it down in the glider, and one thing or another, they had to go through a lot more training, where we only, depending on what you're doing, you had to get to 4 rides is all. I mean, whether, and it was just a ride.
Yeah. Do you recall the day that your service ended?
Yes, I do. I was in Camp Fenton, Texas. Don't ask me why I was in Texas. I should have been released in Camp Grant, where I was drafted. And I was shipped all over the United States, and they finally shipped me into Camp Fenton, Texas, and then they give me my discharge and travel pay back to Illinois.
What day was that? Do you remember the year?
September the 28th in 45.
So how many years total did you serve?
3 years and 8 months in round numbers.
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service?
Absolutely. And I, pardon me, I still am in contact today yet with them. And about, well, within the last year, one of my close friends from Pittsburgh, I spent at Fort Bragg with him at the new museum down there. We were honored because we were the only 2 that were there from the original unit.
Okay. Are you involved in any other organizations other than like this one for veterans?
Well, I'm involved with the American Legion, really is the only one. Well, we have our own unit. Chairman over our own unit, but I'm involved some, but not too much.
Do you travel a lot and tell people about your time in the service?
In my service, well, I'll tell you, I have not got the notes here, but when I was drafted, I went to Rockford, Illinois. And when I was discharged in Texas. and there's 15 other camps in between that, from coast to coast, and from, not border to border. I didn't ever get too far north, but I got down into Gulf and up into the middle states, but border to border, and like I say, 15 different camps. So I did, and then of course Europe. In Europe we were stationed in a schoolhouse where the peace treaty was signed in Reims. And we didn't know why we were there. We were preparing it for something. We was hauling coal and getting it ready for winter. And we come to find out Eisenhower was going to move in, and that's what we was doing, getting it ready for him. So then we moved from there to Epernay, France, which was just a short while, 25 miles. And then each time we went into battle, we left Epernay and went into battle, but always came back to Epernay. I guess we were back to Epernay 4 different times. And when the war ended, we were up at the Baltic Sea, and then about a week after the war, we came back to Epernay again. And then, of course, that was the end of the war, and then different things went on.
What did you go on to do after the war as a career?
After the war, I was involved with my dad before the war in construction. And when I came home, I just went right back into where I was.
How did your service and experiences affect your life?
I don't think it affected my life, only it taught me that when somebody spoke, you answered. And when somebody spoke, you done it, which is a good deal.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as affecting my life, I don't think it really did.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to tell me about that I haven't asked?
Oh, I can tell you all kinds of stories and some you don't want to hear. No, I think the biggest thing about was being with this unit that I was with, that were drafted as we had 4 sets of brothers and 80 men. So you know how closely knit this unit was. And we actually became a family. I mean, and today I'm still in contact in Mississippi all the time yet. There's still one guy living in Mississippi and one guy living in Pittsburgh. And they're just about all gone. So I haven't, but I still am, and we had our reunions up until about 6, 8 years ago. We quit the reunions because there were not enough left. Or if they were left, the traveling was, it left them out in traveling, you know. So and like I say, I did bring some pictures and stuff, but I know you're not prepared for that, I guess.
Well, if you wanna show some and speak about them, I'm sure it's okay.
Okay, I will take just a quick run through them. Now those are what the towns looked like. Here is another one. That is what the towns looked like.
Okay, and what city is this in?
Huh?
What city is this in?
I wouldn't say, I don't know if that was, anyway, it's just a ruined city of Germany. And see, since I was married, I sent all this stuff home and it was taken care of. Now, if I wouldn't have been married, it might have not happened because my folks would have, but everything was put in an album and all this and that. But that is what the cities basically looked like. Every city that or town that you saw was completely, now don't let me take too much of your time. This is one of my friends that, let me see, I went to see him in 203. He is one of the Spiegels from Spiegel Catalog Company, but he is gone now too. I mean, this is, but I would go to see him periodically, maybe every 3-4 years I'd go to Chicago and see him. He and I were together the 3 years and 8 months, and he's the one that was with me in Fort Bragg just a year ago. That we were the only two there that were. This is the one that lives in Mississippi yet that I have contact with all the time. And this was probably one of my closest friends. He was from Oklahoma, but he is gone too. But his wife has remarried, and I am still in contact with her all the time, even though she has remarried, I still. And this is that same gentleman that I was with when we were in Fort Bragg. See, this was dedicated. That was my old unit, and that was being dedicated that day, and that's when we were at Fort Bragg.
And what year was this?
About a year ago. That's me when I was a younger guy. That was in England. We only spent a couple of months in England. And in our spare time we'd roam around, and I always carried a camera. I had a camera all the time. And we'd just roam around and get to different types of construction and so on. And this emblem on my cap was the airborne emblem. Now this is a poor picture, but that's the Battle of the Bulge when I picked up a German flag. Now I had given that German flag to my son. He wanted it. I only have one grandson. And a year ago my son gave it back and said, take that back and give it pardon me, to your grandson, which was right. So then that next Christmas I gave it to my grandson for Christmas then. So it's, and this was the battle we put up, the snow. This was in the Battle of the Bulge. These two pictures were given to the newspaper when they put an article in the paper with me, about me, and I never did get those pictures back. So I took the pictures out of the paper, and this is what I had, this is how good I could get them reprinted out of the newspaper. So, but this was my first sergeant, and this guy and I were the only, I answered to nobody, and this guy is the only guy that answered to me, and we were together every day, all day, 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. And so, but he's gone too. He had died from Alzheimer's, but I saw him within 2 years ago, just about a year before he died, so I did go to see him. This is the boat that I went over on, that Bing Crosby was with us on, the Ile de France.
Looks like the Titanic.
Yeah?
It looks like the Titanic.
Well,
big.
But anyway, that. And this is a glider. You probably don't know what. The pilot and the co-pilot, they rode up in the, of course, in the front window, and back across the back. And there was 13 troops, 13 of us back there in full uniform, full pack. And you sit along, just along the edge, sideways along the edges. Wow. And basically it is just canvas over a framework. You could stick your finger through it anywhere.
Was it a really light airplane then?
Yeah, it was very light. And they pulled it up. Well, they pulled one or sometimes they pulled one and sometimes two behind the plane. And you would invariably you'd get sick for the simple reason when they flew one, they couldn't fly behind the plane because of the prop wash, so they'd fly above it. And then of course they couldn't hold it steady and keep going this way. But then when they flew double toe, they flew one up here, one down here, and one like this, and then you went like this all the time. And sick as a dog, God to clue you. Now this picture was taken in '94. That would have been 10 years before. And this again is a guy I was with within the last year. So let me see, this guy is gone. I'm pretty sure this guy is living, but in very bad health. And that one I don't know. So anyway.
Wow. So how long was your training for the gliders?
The gliders, it was, as far as I was concerned, there was no training involved really, because we flew, the requirement was we had to get up 4 times, because, see, we were paid an extra $50 for riding them. And so, I never did go into combat in them, and I never wanted to either, but. And every paratrooper you talk to, he won't ride in a glider, and they ain't going to get me out in a parachute either. So.
What was your favorite part of? Did you have a favorite part of when you were stationed anywhere, or anything that you did?
Well, Fort Ord, California. We were living in good, super good territory. Because Fort Ord is on the Monterey Bay, and we had good facilities, so that was one of my favorite places. And then we spent a good deal of time in Camp Gruber, Oklahoma, which it was a brand new camp, and it wasn't too bad, but none of it was good.
Oh, is there anything else you want to?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you want any of this, no.
Okay, well, thank you very much for coming in and
I enjoyed this, and I know, like I say, I can't name the boys by the first name, I know one, but Jessica, I know it had to be you, so.
Do you want, can you tell us more stories about when you was actually over in Europe?
When what?
When you were over in Europe, perhaps?
Oh, in Europe, we were sitting in a chateau in Epernay, France, living a life of Riley. Looking ahead to Christmas, it was just before Christmas. And all we was eating and living like kings. And December the 16th, we went to bed, and we no more than got in bed, and they said, up and at 'em. And by the midnight of the 16th, we were in the Battle of the Bulge. We went from a nice warm room and sleeping in a haymow that night and then we went through the Battle of the Bulge from the first day until it was completely wiped over. And according to the records that I got, I don't know how many days we were up to the Battle of the Bulge, but I was given credit for 85 days on the front lines. But we went to, we got one battle star that we should never have had. We were sitting in England when the airborne went in from England to the Arnhem and Nijmegen bridgehead. We were sitting in England, engineering it from England, and we get a battle star. You know, we shouldn't have had one. But then, of course, the Battle of the Bulge probably made up for it. And then we went down to Wessel's on the Rhine River when it was crossed. And we got a battle star for that. And then we went to the Ruhr Pocket, which was heavily industrial, or really Ruhr Pocket was all industrial. And and I don't know under which classification, what battle classification that came under, but anyway. But the weather was so bad in the Battle of the Bulge, you know, snow foot deep and cold, 10 below zero, sleeping in a barn. Oh, one thing I never did. This guy that I was with 24 hours a day, we were sleeping in this barn. He and I were alone. And the barn was made different from what we see here today. We were sleeping on the ground level, and then up was the haymow was open up there. And the cattle were all along the other side of the barn. And the bomber, or not a bomber, a small plane come over and dropped an anti-personnel bomb. And it blew all the windows out right above us and blew them right across where we were sleeping in the hay. Well, I didn't think too much about it until I could hear the animals were really disturbed. Well, then I thought if there was a dumb animal was scared, I guess I ought to be too. But anyway, this guy that was with me, when that hay fell out of the haymow, mice run all over. And that guy was deathly afraid of mice. That bomb didn't bother him a bit. And I'd go to a reunion, and this guy was known as T-Bone. We'd go to our reunion, and T-Bone and I'd be sitting at a table with him, and I said, T-Bone, you seen any mice lately? And he'd just shake all over. But little things like that. I guess that's our entertainment.
Yeah.
And any questions? Okay, I'm going to get to ask you something. I'll show you. Do you know what the V-mail is?
I don't think so.
V-mail, when we wrote home, that's another thing, I wrote to my wife every day for 3 years and 8 months. But 10 days during the Battle of the first 10 days of the Battle of the Bulge, I did write to her. This was V-mail. This is a kind of paper you'd get that you could write letter on. This is the one that I wrote to my wife, I don't know, in January the 13th in the Battle of the Bulge. So you wrote this, and then this is what they done to it. And then this is what my wife would get then instead of this. They V-mailed that, and then of course that was, and I don't know when this was written. Well, this is 16th of December. It's hard to say what's in that letter. But anyway, V-mail, I know there's seemingly not too many people acquainted with V-mail. I mean, from later years.
Yeah.
But it was to save, you know, they could they'd send that over in a film and then get back in the States and reprint it into that. And that's what, now I used to type quite a few of them with single space, and they was hard to read. That cut that down to almost nothing.
Yeah. Why do they call it V-mail?
I don't really know, but that's what it was. See, it was email. No, this is the blank. So I just grabbed one set of them. And another thing we done in the service, we had our own topo outfit that would do our own printing, and every Christmas we'd have our own Christmas cards in color. So this unit I was in, the 18th Corps Airborne, about 3 or 4 years ago, I went back to Fort Bragg to the unit. It's still intact. And I took a bunch of stuff along. I took some of them Christmas cards. They'd never seen one. So then here they up and reprinted one, and then this general sent, then after they reprinted it, he is a 4-star general now. And then there's a little mistake in that, because that wasn't, that Christmas card was made before the Battle of the Bulge, but so they had their own Christmas cards made a couple of years ago, a copy of what we had in 44, in about 43 or 44. So I'm, after a fashion, I'm a back rat, and I have kept. So, anyway, now anything else you want to know,
Anything you want to tell us is fine.
well, my mind's a blank right now.
Stop.
What, do you got a little time to go?
Stop. Okay, what did you carry when you were traveling?
Well, in general, we carried the things you needed most in the clothing, and I carried I never did carry a rifle. I always carried a 45. Well, most staff sergeants did carry a 45, and as far as, we carried a lot of stuff we shouldn't have. I got into a house. See, I spoke fairly fluent German, but I've lost most of it. And our captain would come and say, okay, when we moved into a town, you take that house and tell the people to get out. So I would go in and tell them they had 1 hour to get out. And one lady of the house showed me where she had hidden her sterling silverware. So as soon as they got out of the house, I go down and get the sterling silverware. And so about that, and then too, I'd carry a radio. I had to have electricity, and I had to have lights, and I had to have a telephone. So if I could get access to a radio, I'd get it. so we could at least listen to the radio. So I went down and got that silverware. And then of course, we was carrying everything but what we were supposed to. Of course, I was carrying the radio, and I was carrying silverware, and I was carrying that German flag, and so instead of carrying what you're supposed to, you'd leave a little of that behind once in a while. So then there'd be an order come down, you've got to get rid of all of this garbage you're carrying. Silverware is? I said, no. He said, the officers are using it in the officers' mess hall. So that's the kind. And then I used to, I and this T-Bone that worked together, we always had a trailer, a small trailer, and a Jeep. And if we'd get into a town where we could buy good French bread, we'd get 3 or 4 loaves about that long, you know, and of course they weren't too clean because we'd open the tarp and just stick them in under, so we'd stop along the road and we'd be dig out our French bread we was eating, or carrying, and break off a chunk and start eating. That's kind of, but as far as we did carry way too much stuff that you shouldn't have. I mean, and as far as the things that we should have carried, it was just all the normal kind. I think the biggest difference was the poor guy that had to carry a big heavy rifle, and all I had to carry was that 45 strapped on. But anyway, it was all kinds of things went on that shouldn't have.
Did you see any combat, or were you just behind the scenes kind of?
The combat? Mm-hmm. Well, we went in to the Battle of the Bulge. Now, when you speak of combat, you have to understand that the percentage of people that actually fired a gun in combat is pretty small. But everybody done their thing. My thing was not to carry a gun. My thing was to decode, put messages. I had to code messages and then decode them and deliver them, and that was my job. I mean, the poor, we'll say, just use the infantry as they're the poor guys that were out in front carrying a rifle, where we were close enough to the front. I mean, you heard every shot that was fired, whether it was a rifle or a machine gun or whatever. But like I say, regardless of what you've done your part. I mean, and so in that way, I guess I have to agree. I was fortunate. Normally, a corps headquarters would not be up on the front. But that Battle of the Bulge was so different that they threw anybody and everybody into it. And that's why we were up there and should never have been up there. And crossing of the Rhine, basically we just engineered that from one side of the Rhine River to the other. I mean, we'd sit on one side and we'd see the gliders and the paratroopers and all coming in. So they were in harm's way, and really we weren't, you know. I guess, and hopefully we were doing our part whether we were in harm's way or not. So.
You said you wrote to your wife. Did you do anything else to stay in touch with other family members?
Well, yes, I had a couple sisters, and my dad, and well, I'll tell you, something that is hard to believe. I also kept in contact with an aunt. One day I got a letter. My name wasn't on it. Just 18th Corps Artillery. And I got that letter.
Mrs. Hardy.
That was in the States. Well, not overseas. And this unit was so close-knit that I was in, they saw the town it was from. And there was only one guy in that outfit that...
I knew it was you.
So I got that letter from my aunt that didn't even have my name on it.
Wow.
I mean, that's... to me was a little hard to believe, but I could still understand it because, like I've always said, this unit I was in was a family. It was just definitely a family.
Did you feel any pressure or stress?
Anyone?
Pressure or stress as you did your work?
Not really, no. I mean, sometimes it made you wonder why you were there and what was going on, but it seemed like everything fell into place. You just strided right along with it, you know. And a lot of times you had no time to think. You just kept on the move.
Okay. Well, that's all the time that we have for now.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Jessica. And the reason I brought, see, I had been interviewed down in Bloomington. I don't know if your teacher showed you that tape or not.
We saw a tape and it might have been it.
The reason I gave it to him, I knew what he was doing and what you were doing was new. And I thought, and I was well pleased how they handled it down there. And I thought, well, maybe it will give you...
Yeah, it was pretty helpful.
It would be helpful. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
And thank you.
So watch him?
Yeah, for now.
Okay.
Good morning. This is April 10th, and we are at Pontiac Township High School in Pontiac, Illinois. Today, we are interviewing Henry Vertrees. Mr. Vertrees was born on December 12, 1914, and fought in World War II. The interviewers today are myself, Caitlin